Easy Explain Ethics by Spinoza, the first part, Introduction and of God. So to start off here, just a very brief introduction. We're going to spend a lot more time actually working through the 5 parts of Spinoza's ethics. But just to briefly introduce him. So he was born as Baruch Spinoza, and he was born in the Netherlands in 1632. He lived an academic life. He was a professor. He was teaching, and during that time in his study of Latin, he actually changed his name to Benedict Spinoza. So you may see him referred to as such. It's pretty interchangeable across a lot of reference sources. So it's good to know it is the same person, both Baruch and Benedict. And he did pass away in 1677, and shortly after his death, his Ethics was published. And very quickly, it became a very significant text, and we're going to see why as we work through all 5 parts of it. So the first part, the full title was First Part of the Ethics of God. So he starts out by defining God, and we're going to start to see some similarities out of the gate compared to the definitions of other contemporaries of his like Descartes and Cavendish, but then very quickly he's going to shift into his own very unique definition. So for starters, definition 6, Spinoza says, "By God I understand a being absolutely infinite, that is, a substance consisting of an infinity of attributes, of which each one expresses an eternal and infinite essence." So out of the gate, again, this idea that God is an infinite being or an eternal being, that seems to align, but Spinoza is going to take it a step farther. Once we get to proposition 8, he's going to start setting up God as the infinite substance. There can be no other. We're going to start to tie in God with experienced and perceived infinity. So he says, if in nature a certain number of individuals exists, there must be a cause why those individuals and why neither more nor fewer exist. So we're starting to see a couple principles emerge here that God is being equated as essence equals existence, and as God as nature. God is all. God is everything. God is the infinity of nature. Different from Cavendish, right? Cavendish separated the two. Spinoza's directly going to tie them together. Very pantheistic kind of view here. Moving on to proposition 11. Spinoza says, God, or a substance consisting of infinite attributes, each of which expresses eternal and infinite essence, necessarily exists. Again, this theme of essence being tied to existence. God is infinite, his essence, and his existence. Proposition 15, whatever is in God, and nothing can be or be conceived without God. This is starting to establish that pantheistic approach. Everything is in and of God. There's no getting away from that for Spinoza. Proposition 18, starting to look at some causality here, that God is the immanent, not the transitive cause of all things. Moving right into proposition 19, God is eternal, or all God's attributes are eternal. Again, the essence here is the existence. God is the cause of everything that we are experiencing, all of the effects. Proposition 20, God's existence and his essence are one and the same. There you go. There you have it summed up. Proposition 36, a demonstration below the proposition. Whatever exists expresses the nature or essence of God in a certain and determinate way. That is, whatever exists expresses in a certain determinate way the power of God, which is the cause of all things. So from everything which exists, some effect must follow. And finally, to sum it all up in the appendix of part 1, Spinoza gives us this summary. He says, with these demonstrations, I have explained God's nature and properties, that he exists necessarily, that he is unique, that he is and acts from the necessity alone of his nature, that and how he is the free cause of all things, that all things are in God and so depend on him, that without him they can neither be nor be conceived, and finally that all things have been predetermined by God, not from freedom of the will or absolute good pleasure, but from God's absolute nature, infinite power. So here in this summary, we also start to see the deterministic nature of Spinoza's philosophy and his definition of God. His whole philosophy is going to be founded on this pantheistic, deterministic view of God. So for starters, for now, I hope this helps.